German Chancellor Olaf Scholz has informed his cabinet that he is green-lighting delivery of German-made Leopard tanks to Ukraine. It follows a lengthy consultation process. Scholz is expected to outline his decision in the German Bundestag shortly. What you're looking at here is live pictures from inside the parliament. Now, the confirmation comes after intense discussion and coordination with German allies. The Leopard 2 tank is seen as a game-changer on the battlefield. But what is it about the tank that makes it the weapon of choice for Ukraine?
It's the flagship of the German army. The Leopard 2, a heavily armed battle tank with superior firepower. Weighing close to 60 tons, it can hit targets at a distance of up to 5 kilometers and protect itself and other vehicles from all kinds of threats, while still being agile and easy to maneuver. That's why it's widely regarded as the best of its kind. Developed for the Bundeswehr more than 40 years ago and built in Germany, the Leopard 2 is now also used by many other countries, especially in Europe, but also in Canada, Chile, Qatar, Indonesia and elsewhere. More than 3,500 units are used worldwide by some 19 nations. Over time, the tank was upgraded and adjusted for use in specific environments. So several different versions have emerged, and not all of them are still up to date. Refurbishing them to make them fit for combat in Ukraine takes time. So even with a political decision made, it could take months until the Leopard 2 can make a difference on the front line.
Let's bring in political correspondent Thomas Sparrow as we await Chancellor Olaf Scholz's statement in the parliament on the decision to supply tanks to Ukraine. Thomas, it's a big decision, isn't it?
It's absolutely a big decision. Now we're actually waiting to hear the details from Olaf Scholz. What we know so far is that Germany is going to supply around 14 of those tanks initially, and the key word here is initially. And
Thomas, I'm sorry, I'm going to have to interrupt you. The German Chancellor is speaking. Let's have a listen.
Ladies and gentlemen, dear members of Parliament, I'm very happy to be able to take your questions today, and I would like to seize the opportunity to say something to start. Just before I arrived, I talked to the Ukrainian President, Mr. Zelensky. I talked to him about the current situation and also about what Germany is doing and what Germany will do. Ladies and gentlemen, hearing the concerns of the last year and remembering all that, we will surely be able to say that most of us thought it would not work. We thought that if Germany was not receiving any gas from Russia anymore and if oil and gas had to be retrieved from other sources, we did not think that this would work without a massive economic crisis, without supply bottlenecks this last winter and without all the challenges related to that. Some spoke about a time that we would pass in anger, an autumn, a winter time in anger and fury that we would have to deal with in this country. But the truth is, none of this happened. We're sitting here, it's warm and cozy. That's the case across Germany. We were able to secure energy supply in Germany through a new package with which we erected new infrastructures in Germany. And also, the economic performance of our country, we were able to maintain, and the high price increases for energy, for example, we were able to balance with €1 billion relief packages. So we can really say now that the federal government has given the final no to this and the final end annunciation and announcement to this crisis, and it's also shown what we're able to do, because in a very short time we were able to take all the necessary measures. We extended the use time of coal-fired power plants, and we used harbors and ports to import more gas. We used all the infrastructure we had. The first 3 ports have already seen gas vessels arriving. This is a very good sign for Germany.
gerne an dieser Stelle sagen, dass das Tempo, das
And I
wir
would
hier
like to
gezeigt
say
haben, ein
at this
Tempo sein
point
muss, das
that
unser
the
ganzes
speed
Land prägt.
that we've been able to gather must be a momentum marking what we do in the whole country. We need to keep up the speed. Right now that we needed to fight the crisis, we were able to see how quickly we were able to do all this. We were able to expand on renewable energy. We were able to assist the transformation of the industry and to expand PV in Germany so that we can really do what we are planning to do, to have the first zero-carbon economy in the world, pioneering as the fourth largest economy in the world, showing others the way forward and encouraging others to embark on this pathway too.
Bei allem haben wir den Zusammenhalt nicht
So with all
vergessen.
that, we never forgot about cohesion, we never forgot about the respect vis-à-vis our citizens with everything we've been able to offer.
Meine Damen und Herren,
Ladies and gentlemen,
Ursache für die Herausforderungen,
the
die wir
very
zu
cause
bewältigen
for the
hatten, was unsere
challenges
eigene
we had to
Volkswirtschaft
master
betrifft,
with
ist
regard
der
to our own
furchtbare
economy
imperialistische
was the
Angriffskrieg
terrible
Russlands gegen die
imperialist war of aggression on Ukraine, a terrible war in which the principles that we used to rely on for decades in Europe, that we all agreed, were all questioned. The principle that had contained the following statement: never may borders be shifted through violence. That is what Russia has now stopped adhering to, and that is the change of an era that we talked about here at the Bundestag. And that is why it is correct to proceed in close agreement with our international partners as we support Ukraine, in financial terms, with humanitarian means, but also with our weapons deliveries. We did this changing what it used to be our practice in our current state. In Germany, we had to break a rule, and now we are supplying most weapons together with Great Britain, for example. And if we sum up what we've decided to deliver so far, then we can say Germany will always be pioneering support for Ukraine. We are the country that has been doing just that with a lot of energy and to a great extent.
Dazu haben wir entschieden, dass wir auch schwere Waffen liefern.
We decided to also deliver heavy weapons like the howitzer and other artillery equipment. We provided a number of tanks, a modern ground-to-air system like EST, and we will keep on delivering more systems like the Patriot system, which I decided together with government. So these are all measures helping Ukraine defend itself. And all these decisions were made in close cooperation and in agreement with our allies. And that is the very reason why they're effective and why we were able to make these decisions. That's the principle this government adheres to.
Und das werden wir weiter so halten.
And we will keep on doing this, just as recently showed together with the US when we decided to deliver a Marder infantry combat vehicle and when the US provided their vehicle at the same time. We proved also in a coordination with France that we are doing nothing alone. It's not far away from Berlin that a war on a big country is taking place. And with all we do, we need to make it clear we will do anything necessary to support Ukraine, but at the same time, we want to avoid an escalation of this war so that it doesn't become a war between Russia and NATO. And we will keep on adhering to that principle too.
Dabei gibt es für diese Dinge keine
So there can't be any certainties in this. Nobody can tell us now where exactly the right and the wrong decisions are. And that's why it's been done with intention to move forward gradually. And we will do so also in the future. It's the only principle that proves valid in such a dangerous case, and it's the only principle that can guarantee our security.
Und das gilt jetzt auch für die jüngste Entscheidung, die die Bundesregierung
That also holds
getroffen hat.
true for the latest decision the federal government has
Auch
made.
Kampfpanzer zur Verfügung
We
stellen
will
vom
also
Typ
provide
Leopard 2.
combat tanks
Das ist
to
das Ergebnis
Ukraine,
intensiver Beratung erneut
Leopard
mit unseren
Type 2.
Verbündeten und
This
internationalen
is
Partnern.
the
Und ich
result
will
of the
ausdrücklich
coordination
sagen,
with our international
es war
partners,
richtig
and
und
I
es
need to
ist richtig,
explicitly
dass wir
say
uns nicht haben
it
treiben
was
lassen,
right and
sondern
it
dass wir
keeps
auf
on
diese
being
enge
right
Kooperation in
to
einer
not
solchen
have been
Angelegenheit
pushed
setzen und
forward,
sie auch
but
fortsetzen.
to have waited for international cooperation to take place.
Achten Sie auf die Zeit.
Unser Ziel
So
ist es, rasch 2
it's our goal
Panzerbataillone
to
zusammen mit
deliver
unseren
2
Verbündeten
tank battalions together
bereitzustellen.
with our
Es
allies.
gibt viele Länder, die gerne
There
mitliefern
are a
wollen,
number
und wir
of
werden
countries
das
who would like to join in on the
koordinieren und sie
deliveries. We
einbeziehen,
will
damit das
do
Schritt für
this in a
Schritt möglich
coordinated
wird.
approach and
Deutschland wird, wie gesagt,
involve
Leopard
them
2
also so that it
A6 Panzer
becomes
zur Verfügung stellen.
possible.
Leopard
Germany
2
will
A6
provide
Panzer zur Verfügung stellen, die aus den
Leopard
Beständen der
2
Bundeswehr
A6
stammen.
battle tanks
Und
from the
wenn die
stocks
weiterhin das
of
machen, werden wir die
our German
ukrainische
armed
Besatzung
forces.
hier in
And if
Deutschland
we do
ausbilden.
that,
Wir werden Ausbildung
we will
gewährleisten,
also
Logistik, Munition
provide
und
training,
Wartung der
logistics,
Systeme.
ammunition,
wie
and
gesagt, den
maintenance
Partnerländern
of these
ermöglichen,
systems.
dass
And we
sie
will also
liefern
enable
können.
our partner countries to
Damen und
deliver
Herren,
their tanks
das
too.
ist das richtige
Ladies and
Prinzip.
gentlemen, this is
Es
the
geht
right
hier
principle to follow.
sehr wirksame Waffensysteme.
We're talking
Und
about
es ist
very
richtig, dass wir
efficient
diese
weapon system
Waffensysteme
here,
niemals
and it
alleine
is
und immer
correct
in
to
enger
never
Kooperation
go it alone,
bereitstellen.
but to
Ein Wort
always
zum Schluss.
provide these weapons
in diesem
in
Land
close
viele
agreement with our
Bürgerinnen und
partners.
Bürger, die
And let
sich
me conclude,
Sorgen
in this country there are
auch
many
angesichts einer
people who
solchen
worry,
Entscheidung und
also
angesichts der Dimension, die diese
vis-à-vis
Waffe
such a
mit sich
decision,
bringt.
and also vis-à-vis
Und deshalb möchte
the
ich diesen Bürgerinnen und
dimensional
Bürgern hier und an
magnitude
dieser
that
Stelle
sending
sagen,
such a weapon means.
vertrauen
And this
Sie
is why I
mir,
would like to
vertrauen Sie
tell
der
you at this point,
Bundesregierung.
please do
Wir
trust
werden
me.
weiter,
Trust the
weil
federal
wir
government.
international abgestimmt handeln,
As we
sicherstellen,
act
dass diese
in international
Unterstützung
close
möglich ist,
agreement,
ohne
we
dass
will
die
make sure
Risiken für
that
unser
this
Land darüber
support
in eine
becomes
falsche
possible
Richtung
without
wachsen.
our country
Das ist,
running
warum wir
into
das so
risks.
tun, und so
And
werden wir
this
es
is the
auch
reason why
weitermachen.
we're doing it this way, and we will keep on doing just that.
And you have been watching there the German Chancellor Olaf Scholz telling of his decision to send the Leopard 2 tanks, those German tanks, to Ukraine.
Vielen Dank für die einleitenden Worte. Und Herr Bundeskanzler, wenn Sie mich
Thank
beim
you,
nächsten Mal als
Chancellor.
sitzungsleitende Präsidentin auch
And Mr.
begrüßen,
Chancellor,
wäre ich
if
sehr dankbar.
the next time you could greet me too, as the chairperson of the session, I'd be most happy.
Wir
Thank you, I
beginnen
will.
jetzt mit der Befragung des Bundeskanzlers.
We will
Und
start
das Wort
with a
hat
question
zuerst
time.
aus der
I now give the floor
CDU-CSU-Fraktion Jürgen
to
Hahn.
CDU-CSU Parliamentary Group. Jürgen Hart, you have the floor.
Frau Präsidentin, Herr Bundeskanzler!
Mr. President,
Sie haben gestern über die Presse eine Entscheidung
Federal
bekannt
Chancellor,
gegeben.
you
Wir hätten
announced
wir
a
uns
decision
gewünscht, dass das in
yesterday
Form einer
via the press, and we would
Regierungserklärung
have
hier im Hause erfolgt
liked
wäre,
to
wo
see
man
this
auch hätte
happening
darüber
in the form of a
debattieren können.
government declaration and of a government statement here from this building, about which we could have,
Aber
well,
sei es drum, die
debated.
Entscheidung war richtig
But
und
well,
auch der Kopf
the
des
decision was
Bundeskanzlers
correct,
ist rund, damit die
and
Gedanken die Richtung ändern können.
also your head is round so that your
Ich möchte
thoughts
an
can
dieser
change the
Stelle
direction.
aber darauf hinweisen,
But let me say
auf
at
dem
this
Weg zu dieser
point
Entscheidung
that
ein
on our
erheblicher
way getting
Flurschaden
to this
entstanden
decision, a lot of damage
war
has
noch
been
vor wenigen
done.
Tagen
A lot of
Streit
harm
auf
has been
offener Bühne mit
caused.
Regierungen aus dem Baltikum,
Some
mit Finnland.
days
Die
ago,
Polen haben noch gestern eine bürokratische Antwort
we heard
geprüft
from
bekommen
some
auf ihre Anfrage,
Baltic
ob sie
countries
Panzer liefern dürfen, statt ein
that
klares Ja. Der
there was
französische
not a
Präsident
clear
Macron
yes
hat
to
in
Poland's
der Rede in der
request to
Sorbonne,
send their
wo
tanks,
Sie beide
and
ja gesprochen
the
haben,
French president
gesagt, man wird nicht nur an
said
den Entscheidungen
at
messen,
the
die man
Sorbonne
trifft,
University
sondern auch
that
an denen, die man
one
nicht trifft.
wasn't just held against the
Das ist
decisions
ein
one takes, but
erheblicher
also against the
politischer
decision
Flurschaden,
one
der für Deutschland entstanden
decisions
ist.
one
Wer
doesn't
trägt
take.
dafür
So
die
that's
Verantwortung?
an enormous damage that's been caused. Who will
Schönen
take the
Dank
responsibility
für
for
Ihre
that?
Frage und auch für die
Thank you
Gelegenheit,
very much
noch
for
einmal
this
vertieft
question,
auf
and
das
also
Thema
thanks for
einzugehen,
giving
und das
me the
will ich gerne
opportunity
tun.
to
Ich bin
give
vollständig
you
anderer Meinung,
more
abgesehen
explanations
davon,
about the
dass wir
topic.
die Entscheidung heute
I do
getroffen
not
haben, sie heute
agree
bekannt
at all.
gemacht
Apart from the
haben.
fact that we
Unmittelbar
just
danach
took the
habe ich
decision
die erste
today and
Gelegenheit
announced it
genutzt, hier im
immediately, and
Deutschen Bundestag
immediately
etwas dazu zu
afterwards, I'm
sagen,
now seizing
weil
the
es uns
first
alle
chance there
bewegt,
is
und das
to
ist auch
comment
richtig
the
so.
decision here before the Bundestag, and I think this is correct.
Aber ich will Ihnen sehr klar sagen,
But I will
wenn wir Ihren
clearly
Ratschlägen
say to
folgen
you,
würden, wäre das eine
if
Gefahr
we
für die
followed
Sicherheit Deutschlands.
your advice, then that'd be a danger for Germany's security. Many citizens in this country are afraid to proceed in government the way you are proposing. It would be wrong, a most terrible mistake, to go it alone in this question, to do this alone. It is necessary to do everything in a close agreement with the others, and it is clear that it's not going to be the next press statement to deliver. That's not going to be the calendar according to which we align our announcements, but we proceed in close coordination with our friends and allies. This way we have to proceed if we want to guarantee peace and security in Europe and if we want to help Ukraine.
Sie dürfen eine Nachfrage stellen.
So, follow-up question
Herr
is allowed.
Bundeskanzler, Sie haben davon gesprochen, dass wir
Mr. Chancellor, you said that with our support of Ukraine, we do not want to provoke Russia to not let this conflict escalate further. So, what else would it be apart from a provocation than delivering howitzers or tanks? And what's now different about it in January 2023? It is the same provocation. What's different now vis-à-vis a decision that we might have taken with partners last year? Dear Member of Parliament, I did not speak of a provocation. If there is a provocation at all, then it is on the part of the Russian government because they're attacking Ukraine to get hold of their territory.
Aber das will ich ganz klar sagen. Was
But
ist der
I
Unterschied?
will tell you quite clearly where the difference is. If someone really believes right now that it would be right to not proceed in a gradual approach, and that it would be wrong to not find out what's right, and to not wait for this agreement, to not do one step after the other, then that would not be good for peace and security in Europe. And that's why I am saying we didn't just do it alone, but we did it in a close coordination and agreement with our friends and allies, and we will do it like this all the time in future as well.
Eine weitere Nachfrage aus der CDU.
There's another follow-up question from CDU-CSU Parliamentary Group, Mr. Hahn. Thank you, Ms. President. Dear colleagues, Mr. Chancellor, almost a year ago, you proclaimed the change of an era here, and you announced to support Bundeswehr with 100 billion euros and with a permanent budget of 2%. Out of the 100 billion euros, no money has been sent, and the billions are melting away in the hot sunlight of inflation. And the money you promised have not been calculated for in the current budget. And you also said that Germany would be taking the lead and that we would become the strongest armed forces in Europe. But how do you want to keep this promise? How are you planning to recover the material that we're now handing over as soon as you can? Thank you very much for this question. And first of all, it is true, immediately after the war started, I made this promise. The corresponding law makes a clear statement on an average 2% of Germany's economic power and output is supposed to be spent on defense spending, and this will be my commitment, not just now, but also later on. And the 100 billion euros special budget gives us the guide rail for that without letting others deter us from making the right decisions. We now need the right decisions for the right systems. Some decisions have been taken on the F-35, on nuclear participation, also on the transport helicopter. And some decisions are imminent and still pending. We're talking about long-term contracts with production. They may take years, and we're also talking about ammunition and spare parts supplies. So all the errors that were made in the last decades need to be abolished. and also the errors made by the CSU colleagues, not just abolishing the duty of military service, but also the savings program, which was the biggest in history for our armed forces. And part of all this is also correcting all these mistakes. No long-term contracts that were there. That was a mistake. No spare parts supplies, no ongoing production, no sufficient ammunition supplies that will be produced all the time. So correcting these mistakes together with the Defense Ministry and with the Federal Armed Forces, that's what we will do. Federal Chancellor.
You have been watching the German Chancellor Olaf Scholz informing the German Parliament of the green-lighting of delivery of German-made Leopard 2 tanks to Ukraine following a lengthy consultation process. We heard the German Chancellor emphasize that this decision was made in cooperation with partners in order to support Ukraine. He mentioned the delivery of systems, that it was a decision very much in close cooperation of the Leopard 2 delivery systems. And he said that it was the right decision. And let's get more coverage now on this breaking news. We are here in the studio with political correspondent Thomas Sparrow. He is with me. And we also have joining us from the German Bundestag, Nina Hase, our chief political correspondent. I'd like to ask Nina what the main takeaways are from the speech.
Well, first of all, the biggest important point was, of course, the fact that Olaf Scholz is now on record as saying that Germany will deliver Leopard tanks to Ukraine of the 2A6 type. Now, this ends, of course, all the criticism that we have seen Germany under for the last days and weeks. And Olaf Scholz, in this speech, actually explained a lot of the things that made it so difficult for Germany to essentially make a swift decision. He said he had to weigh it up very carefully. He reiterated also the points why we are in this situation in the first place. He blamed Russia for this brutal, terrible imperialist war that makes these decisions necessary. And Ukraine, he said, has asked for these weapon systems because they're simply the most very efficient systems that are available around the world. Olaf Scholz then stressed again that such a decision had to be made with international partners and that he has now managed to form a coalition, that Germany will send Leopards from the armed forces, from the Bundeswehr, but other countries will also join. Germany will provide training, logistics, maintenance and ammunition. And most importantly, Sarah, I think, is the point that Olaf Scholz has now explained himself, that he essentially caught up with days and weeks of a lack of communication.
This has been framed, Nina and Thomas, as such a huge decision, we have to say, on the part of Germany. But we also have to emphasize that it's already been decided to send the Marder infantry vehicle, howitzers, Patriot missile systems. I mean, you know, this is what Scholz highlighted in his speech, Thomas. So tell us, how big a decision is this to send the Leopard 2 tanks?
It is another step in Germany's progressive change of direction. Germany, for a very long time, was actually very hesitant when it came to sending military equipment to war zones, something that obviously changed after the beginning of the war in Ukraine. But change in Germany does not happen overnight, and especially such a big change here in Germany. So it began rather slowly, it began in a progressive way, and this is the latest step in that change of direction that is being led by Germany's Chancellor Olaf Scholz. So it is a very big decision here in Germany. I think something else that's important to stress is that, okay, maybe Germany's allies were listening very carefully at what Mr. Scholz was saying just now, but this was also very much directed at a local audience. It was very much directed at Germans who have been concerned about these deliveries, who are worried that Germany could be involved in a larger conflict, who are worried about all this maybe spiraling out of control as Germany and other allies continue to send weapons to Ukraine. And I found that particularly important about this speech just now. It was not only directed at explaining why Germany is making this decision now and why Germany is making this decision with its closest allies, but also what Germany wants to prevent, what it wants to achieve to help Ukraine, but also what it wants to prevent to become part of a wider conflict, of a war in which NATO plays a larger role.
Okay, Nina, just briefly tell us what happens next now? When do these tanks go? How quickly?
Well, That is, of course, a very big question. It is part of this coalition. Germany will send at least a company of Leopard 2, so that means, in other words, 14. But they're hoping to have 2 battalions ready for Ukraine as quickly as possible. Now, they did also discuss all these issues behind closed doors because they wanted to coordinate their efforts so that they don't have to deal with completely different tank systems on the ground. But we'll just have to wait and see about the details. They will emerge in the next couple of hours, days and weeks.
Okay. Thomas, what other takeaways do you see from this decision?
Well, it will be important, obviously, to discuss, as you pointed out, what the next step in the process is. It is likely that we will hear the German Chancellor coordinate even closer, for example, with the US President, but also with the French President, with other European leaders. In fact, we're hearing that there will be a phone call maybe today to discuss those next steps. And the next element will also be, when is Germany going to actually send those tanks? What we're hearing now is that Germany will start training Ukrainian soldiers very soon, that training could actually take between 6 to 8 weeks. So basically, we're talking here about Germany planning to send its tanks until the last week of March. That could take much longer from the US. So the US, it's also planning to send its own Abrams tanks. And obviously, because of geographical distance, because of logistical issues, that could take much longer. So it's not only about the political decision that has been announced, it's also about how that political decision will ultimately be implemented.
Okay. Thomas Sparrow joining us here in the studio, Chief Political Correspondent Nina Haase joining us from the Bundestag. Thank you so much to both of you for your analysis. Just to quickly recap for our viewers, German Chancellor Olaf Scholz greenlighting the delivery of German-made Leopard 2 tanks to Ukraine. You're watching DW News. Thank you so much for joining us for this special coverage. I'm Sarah Kelly in Berlin. Take care.